world, we have Yuval Tori, who is Chief Commercial Officer at Urbance. Yuval, welcome.
Thanks very much, Ian. Hi, Marek. Hi, Ian. Great to be here. Hi to everybody else on the line. I'm actually joining you guys from London.
And Marek Różecki, Managing Partner at Last Mile Experts, is also with us. Marek, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Delighted to be here. I hope you can see my special Christmas tree that I put in the background for you today.
2020 has been a bit of an test of our endurance, hasn't it? A trial. So, Yuval, I might throw to you now. We've talked about all these things. Capacity seems to be at the core of it. So, for retailers, who want to be able to deliver, they want to grow. They want to be able to deliver on the promise. They want to be able to sell. So what have they got to start thinking about when it comes to whether it's either building their own capacity, whether how they choose their delivery partners and these sorts of things?
Right. We started the year, even before COVID, with a shortage of drivers cross industry. There's definitely in Western Europe, definitely in America. The huge increase, probably doubling down on the number of deliveries that we will have seen by the end of this year, has even sort of sharpened that point. E-commerce operations, especially large ones, that by no means all of them are today hybrid, whether they have just external fleets or their own ones, they must have a very flexible, I tend to say accordion-like operation. It used to be that they knew their seasonality. They knew that, there's Black Friday, Cyber Monday, there's the time leading to Christmas. It's a very seasonal but predicted year that they see in front of them. They knew that the growth year on year is 10%, 15%. Suddenly we saw COVID completely disrupting everything. Huge shortage of drivers, as I've mentioned initially, that forced them into either branching out to more 3PLs or resorting to very interesting tactics like crowdsourcing, for instance. How do you get drivers really quickly on board? All of that must be underlined by good technology, otherwise it breaks down. Otherwise you can't maintain your cost levels, you can't definitely maintain your customer experience, uniformity across all of your omni-channel ways of delivering, right?
If I can just comment here, because I think you made a really good point. For me, I call it the secret sauce, and it's the technology, Ian, are you ready for what I'm going to say? IDM, Interactive Delivery Management, the tool that allows customers to be in control, to see, to be able to share their preferences. It's fundamental because you can do everything else. You can have the best lockers, you can have the best dark stores, you can have everything perfect. But if the IDM, which, for those of you who are not so close to the industry, I call it Uber for parcels. It's a very interactive way of communicating. Without that, everything falls apart. So, we're on the same page on that one.
Well, and I just want to sort of highlight here is that whilst technology underpins it all, there's the physical resource as well. So you just mentioned parcel lockers, which is the first time today, Marek, and it won't be the last. But you made a really good point that already at the beginning of this year, pre-COVID, we were discussing the driver shortage in our sector. But we've seen some other forces at play there as well, which is as people have lost their jobs, been furloughed, been put on extended leave, whatever it is, they've been looking for work. And we've had lots of university students haven't been going to school. So there has been, in some respects, an availability, a labour pool that's become available to soak up this driver shortage. Do you have a quick comment on that, Yuval?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's definitely potential there. There are people looking for jobs. The Uber-like model is becoming more and more popular in Europe. You also see, for instance, Amazon. We've mentioned the giant evil competitor for most of the people. I'm kidding.
They're not evil. They're just misunderstood.
Full of admiration for what they do. They win through technology, by the way. And the motto when people ask me about what do you guys do in one sentence, we actually level the playing field. We allow everybody else that competes with Amazon to come close to their level of technology. But parking this to the side for a second, we see them, Amazon, already launching quite aggressively, for instance, their same programs that they had in America, encouraging people with funding to start mini delivery fleets. because there is this shortage. But that needs to be supported and underlined by good technology, because you don't want lengthy train courses for these drivers. You basically want them just to pick up their phone, download an app, register to various shifts. It might be your weekend shift or after work shift, and immediately start communicating with the typically cloud-based large delivery platform, getting jobs through that interaction, delivering them, allowing whomever is the shipper to follow you through your delivery routes, and basically have the whole track and trace and everything fully optimized, so that you are allowed or able to very quickly in various parts of the country onboard individuals or small companies to become part of your enlarged fleet or delivery options.
And this is an important point for me, is using technology to be able to expand capacity quickly. And one of the key things you mentioned there was being able to do it right at the end. You said being able to do it almost anywhere in the country, as opposed to having centralized training centers. Mark, you've got a bit of experience there. Can you just quickly comment on that?
Absolutely. Well, a couple of things. First of all, the interesting thing with Amazon, and I was part of the startup team there, so a lot of the technology and the ideas came from Europe, not from the States, which is quite interesting. And I was part of the Flex team, so the guys who set up their crowdsource model. And you're absolutely right, Ravel. What was really important for us is it should be absolutely the simplest possible thing. The motto I always had is your grandmother should be able to use that technology. So I think it's very interesting, and that allows you, Ian, to your comment, to not have any training centers, because you actually can do everything online. And if it's really needed, they come to a local Amazon depot where some very, very basic training is supplied. There's one difference though, because the DSP scheme, which is actually their fundamental
So
core.
just for those who don't know what the DSP scheme is, that's the delivery service partner, which is what you've mentioned before about Amazon helping small companies set up to become these delivery service partners for Amazon. Sorry, Mark, please go on.
And that is more semi-professional. So they've got the two. They've got the crowdsource model, which is Flex, which is really cool because it allows them at an unplanned peak to get capacity. The DSP is fundamental, and it's the way that in an outsourced manner, they are in a very entrepreneurial outsourced manner.
While we're talking about this last mile capacity and technology and how all this fits together, let's just quickly mention parcel lockers and out of home delivery. There was thinking, Yuval, I'll start with you here. As a retailer, can you exclude thinking about or not think about out of home delivery when it comes to putting together your delivery options and your partnerships with various delivery companies?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think what this year has taught all of us is that you must be flexible in your delivery options. So for instance, up until COVID, I think during the working hours of the day, most deliveries actually, and most people would schedule the deliveries to be delivered to work. So think about a large city, and think about London for a moment there. So you would, and especially if you're a large shipper doing millions of deliveries per month, you have a network whereby most of your deliveries go into central London, and you might have capacity to support it. It might be into lockers, it might be just into the reception desk at an office, but you might be delivering in bulks. Suddenly there's COVID, nobody goes to work, your whole shift, your whole most of your deliveries basically are going into maybe more rural areas, maybe the outskirts of the city. Maybe you now need to resort to completely different set of fleets. And the other thing is, and I agree about lockers, which is one way whereby you could show flexibility. The other thing is, think about not only the deliveries but also your return path. Most of the e-commerce players relied, especially those that had brick and mortar shops, relied a lot on their physical locations as well for click and collect, for returns. That has now, for some parts of the year, has been gone. You need to once again cope and offer something else, maybe those lockers for returns as well. Same way as Amazon does, so there's a lot of flexibility. And within a day or so, because guys, you probably remember, governments announced within 24 hours a change in restrictions. you need to immediately, you don't want to just say, right, I need to just pause my delivery operation for a week and regroup. I need within a day to offer you, the recipient of that parcel, an alternative. This is, I think, once again, where a flexible, adaptable delivery operation supported by adaptable technology is key.
And I think that's a really, really great point, because for me, I keep coming back to the secret sauce, but it's the tech that allows you to be asset agnostic. So in the sense that the asset that you need changes, the location changes, the demand changes, and you can go like this, because we've never, I think, in my adult life experienced anything quite like this, where everything has turned upside down almost overnight. If we think about it, the high street, I won't say it doesn't exist, but it's become far less important than it was. The data we had from the UK is an example. We've had, delivery out of home growing. I was shocked when my pal at Finnish Post shared with me that the latest data they've got for B2C is 90%, 90 is going out of home. I mean, everything is changing.
Let's just shift focus for a moment and just talk about e-commerce fulfillment and the partnerships that retailers might have. Yuval, if I start with you, we mentioned during our sort of summary at the beginning that some e-commerce fulfillment companies, 3PLs, have either stopped accepting new customers or have put very strict caps on their customers. What do you see happening in this space?
Right. So you're absolutely right. They went, basically they've maximized their capacity. And the bottom line is, both for a 3PL, not accepting jobs is obviously a horrendous business situation, and I'm sure that COOs and CEOs get beaten by their boards for that. Also for an e-commerce seller, and we know that their policy is that we will ship. If you buy something online, you put it in your basket, you then want to pay for it and for that to be shipped to your home address. Most retailers would say, we will ship it to you even if it costs us an arm and a leg, because from a brand awareness perspective, from a brand reputation perspective, we won't tell you, sorry, we have maximized our shipping capacity. So most of them, and once again, I invite the audience here to comment. I'm sure some of them work for these large e-commerce players, would even offer you something that costs them more than maybe the profit they make on that item, but they will not say to you, we're not going to ship it. They will probably also not say to you, yeah, we'll ship it, but it's not the normal SLA, which is next day, you'll get it next week. That's quite horrendous for business. So that's a reality they're facing. And how do you still manage a profitable business within that reality? One way is, are you able to very, very quickly, for instance, if you're the retailer, the seller, the shipper, to onboard new 3PLs really quickly, within a days? It was unheard of up until this year, or maybe, but now I think once again, with some huge technological improvements on both sides, the 3PL and the e-commerce systems, we can now, and we have examples of for instance, some of our customers onboarding large 3PLs that manage, suddenly they can take on large delivery capacity within a few days. And that's key to sustaining your business, to managing a profitable business.
I think it's absolutely true. The smart e-commerce players have to find a way to deliver whatever it costs. And I remember when I was at Amazon, this was exactly the motto. Even if you were going to lose money, you had to keep your promise once you've made it. So I think that's important. But I think what's going to happen, this new world is going to require people to cooperate that have never cooperated before. So we're going to have perhaps carriers who were competing before to saying, sometimes in the interests of everyone, we've got to do things together, particularly in out-of-home infrastructure. I think we're going to get retailers who suddenly have been put in at the deep end, who are going to need to find, and it's maybe 3PLs is one way. The other thing is, can you find technology that in a way consolidates a little bit like the brokers do, that you suddenly get access to all the carriers. So if carrier 1 has capped you, you can seamlessly go to carrier 2 or 3 or 4, or maybe you go to 8 carriers and between them, you manage to somehow fulfill your requirements. And the final thing, I think there's going to be a scenario where you're going to get redundant infrastructure that can be used today. A classic example we saw today, and I'm sorry to mention the big A again, but Amazon has started first in City of London using car parks. And because of COVID, car parks are not exactly full at the moment. People are not driving into the office in city centers and so on. And I think it's super cool that you're going to have new uses for old infrastructure. Is it car parks? Is it shopping centers? Is it retail outlets, which suddenly become micro fulfillment centers? So I think this is a really cool topic. I don't know, Yuval, if you've got a sort of view on that one.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think this is one of the ways in which this huge challenge is going to be solved. By the way, another one is, if you remember, up until the beginning of the year or so, everybody wanted to run an optimized delivery operation, right? And typically optimized would mean a very simple thing. How can I do more drop-offs with a single driver, with a single lorry, with a certain route? I think what this year has done, and I'm just following up on, and I'm agreeing with what Mark said, this variety of options, this multiplicity of fleets now forces people to think beyond just optimizing per driver. How do you optimize across fleets? So you're looking at a variety of options, many options to deliver. They have different costs. They can cater for different delivery SLAs. How do you optimize across all of that, while obviously still keeping to the bottom line? And this is the customer experience cannot be hurt. This is a must. But I want to bring my cost down. Suddenly, I need to optimize across many more options. By the way, some of which are external to my company, and I have limited control over. At the very least, what I would like to have is full monitoring of, and at least the information, so that the decisions I can take are informed. So I think that this is a fascinating area that, once again, I'm sure that many of the people on this video bridge probably can relate to. But back to you, Ian. I don't know your thoughts about this.
Well, there are a number of things to consider around all of this as well. When you are sort of putting one parcel of this carry, another parcel of that carries, being able to pull it all together so you as a retailer are managing the relationship with the customer. And this is something I've had numerous discussions with people in the delivery sector over the last few years, is who owns the relationship with the customer? Who should be communicating with the customer, and how? And this comes back to your collective earlier points about the interactive delivery management. So that means if the customer has an app, who do they have the app with? Is it with the retailer or with the shipper, the carrier?
That's a really good point. So the one thing that for sure they don't want, and it's even not manageable, if I'm getting my deliveries from 10 different 3PLs, the DPDs, the Hermes, the Yodels, I will not have 10 apps running on my phone. I will also, because I've already purchased something from a seller, I must have had interaction with them, and I might already have an app that they gave me because I'm their customer. So ideally, from a consumer perspective, from the recipient perspective, I'd like that same app. So for instance, if I bought something from ASUS and I've got the ASUS app on my phone, I'd like the track and trace. I like all of the delivery related notifications to be within that app. What this translates into? It translates into basically the technology allowing white labeling of the track and trace. So if ASUS is the shipper, they should have some technology in place that allows the information coming from the 3PL side to be reflected in the app that they gave me. I don't want to use 5 different apps for each and every delivery. It doesn't make sense. That's from the customer perspective. By the way, this app also needs to be flexible, and that's another, or the customer experience side of the technology. Because, for instance, once again, think about COVID and what has happened this year. Within a day, suddenly, signatures, for instance, were not allowed. The whole delivery process had to be remote. I'm not even allowed, typically in most countries, to sign on the driver's iPad or Zebra device or whatever they hold. So not only that, I want an app with all of that information reflected, I also wanted to offer different ways to manage chain of custody, acceptance, acknowledgement. So for instance, codes. Many of our customers started using codes. So there's a code that is being sent to me ahead of time, and then the driver remotely, while keeping the social distance required, asks for that code. everything should be through the app. I don't want to once again branch out into and go fetch my email from yesterday to see that code. I want that code within the app. So sorry about the lengthy response, but these are some pains that were shared with us, and I'm sure you guys have heard the same from actually customers and shippers dealing with this on daily basis.
Marek, do you want to comment on this before we move on?
Yeah, because from the Amazon perspective, and you can like or hate them, but these guys have written a book on e-commerce. The retailer must have the relationship with the customer. He can share data that's important with anyone else, but he cannot allow anyone else to have that. And what I think you're going to get is, because I completely agree with Val's comment that people don't want 50 apps. They're going to have probably a couple of very relevant ones. And the smart retailer will find ways, either through partnership, through software, that he can actually cover several different carriers in one app. And I can see it either happening, Amazon who want to own all of the customer, that's one partner that can do it. The other are going to be third parties who are specialists and got the tech. The one to watch that I'm concerned about, watch this space, is Google, who are already looking at this, who want to create, a solution that will bring one app for everyone.
Another great point as well. We've been really delving into these three main themes here today. One is capacity. There's visibility and control, which is what we've just been talking about here, and the customer delivery experience. And sort of lurking in the background is cost, is this last mile cost. So some people would say, well, look, if you're dealing with multiple carriers, does that mean a higher cost? And there was a question in the chat from Gregoire, says, how do you see the increase in capacity? How can you increase capacity and expand your fleet without necessarily increasing the cost? And another great question in here is about parcel lockers. Marek, get ready, mate. Delivery to parcel lockers isn't really incentivized. Now, everybody, please stop using the word incentivized. It's a word I hate. I can't stand the word incentivized. We've got to find a different way to say it.
Generally speaking, lockers are important because of the capacity they generate. Typically, a locker network, if it's well managed and proximate to the customer, will be able to do 3 to 4 times more parcels. So that's a huge efficiency effect. It's also got financial efficiency, which means that, for example, in Poland, which is without a doubt today the biggest locker market in Europe, subscriptions all started with lockers and PUDOs because it couldn't efficiently be offered without subsidizing the way Amazon does, without that technology. So I think the lockers not only give you very quick capacity without having to increase the number of drivers, because your driver's suddenly delivering 3 to 4 times more. And, I could talk about this for ages, I won't, but, about it's not just the number of parcels you can address, it's the fact that you've got 100% first-time delivery.
This is a growing concern of online shoppers. They're saying, well, I love shopping online, but I don't love the emissions. I'd like to reduce it. Information at the point of checkout is important. So if we can provide a pricing incentive, that's how you use the word, everybody, a pricing incentive along with an environmental benefit, then that could encourage the out-of-home delivery option. But just on this theme of reducing last mile costs, Yuval, do you have some comments?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think out-of-home options were very much desirable, maybe up until COVID and up until the point where people started working from home. Because if I'm working from home, going out to a locker, it sort of, for some people, reminds them of the old delivery experience where I would go to my local post office, for instance. And that's a bit of a hassle. I rather things to be just dropped off at my doorstep. I think lockers are a very attractive option if I'm out and about. If this is not under lockdowns, etc. If I'm working from home and I'm there all day long, and I can buzz in the delivery person and just tell him to drop everything at my doorstep, that's fine. I do think that if I'm to generalize everything that has been said, I think it's more about options, sustainability. Lowering my CO2 carbon footprint is definitely key. We've seen in the past year, for instance, large fashion retailers that are being more and more blamed for their part in creating more pollution in the world, offering green deliveries as an option, and even charging premium money for it. And customers paying, because aware customers would pay even premium money for a green delivery. And that once again needs to be supported with delivery options and the right technology so that you know, and this is key, at the point of placing the order, and it all happens in real time. When I'm checking out online, paying, and then selecting my delivery options, do I have enough capacity in terms of my delivery operation to deliver to your address tomorrow between 2 and 3 in a green way? Do I have e-cargo bikes to do it? Do I have maybe walkers to do it? That's a big question. And once again, this is something that more and more we see e-commerce players facing.
I want to talk about another big emerging trend, I suppose, in retail, which is ship from store, especially super fast shipping from store. It was sort of a bit of a bolt on, I suppose, is how I'd describe it. Sort of people realized there was less stock being sold via the store, so there was more incentive, there's that word again, to fulfill orders from a retail outlet for local delivery. Yuval, do you want to just share a few comments on that, please?
Yeah, I think what has changed drastically is, I referred to it briefly at the beginning, is the way the supply chain is structured, meaning ship from store used to be a very convenient way to shorten the distance, lower the cost, and offer very prompt deliveries for retailers. What they've seen is that, once again, within a day, very short notice, suddenly they need to shut down their stores. Suddenly they don't have staff coming to the store. It used to be very desirable by them because whether it's, by the way, ship from store, or even better for them, click and collect, they would sort of force you to interact with the brand. Nowadays, yes, stores could still be used as front warehouses or dark warehouses, but remember, those stores, for instance, do not typically allow, especially if they're in the center of town, for large lorries to park at the front and then do the loading, etc. A lot of flexibility and adaptability has been demanded this year from these people that used to do ship from store. Suddenly it's shipped from the warehouse that is on the outskirts of the city, and you need to, within 24 hours, adapt to it and have efficient delivery, optimized delivery routes.
Marek, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I think that things are really changing this space fast, and we've had a few big retailers. One interesting one was actually a retailer selling very high value items from shopping centers. And the challenge they had, because the item is so expensive, they couldn't keep it in several stock locations. So they had to create, so the retail points suddenly became dark stores in the sense that no one's visiting them anymore. And it's very interesting, the challenge they had, and this is where software is key. How can they suddenly, from day to day, should we say, set up this infrastructure from a software perspective that those stores can operate and deliver? So it is happening, it's happening now, and the guys that control and can supply the tech for this are going to be laughing all the way to the bank at the moment because it's desperately needed.
And there are a lot of things to consider in this. One is the supply chain. So at the beginning of this year, all the stock was being just delivered through to the retail outlet as if, it's normal life. We're just going to keep on going with the stock being delivered to the retail stores. Then we couldn't deliver it to the retail stores because the stores were closed in some countries. It's a really important topic for retailers and delivery companies alike. And that is the value of the driver as the touch point with the customer. So if you're an online player and you have a great designed website, but you have a terrible delivery experience, that's not so great. So Yuval, I'll start with you. Maintaining brand value at this critical point of the e-commerce sales process.
Absolutely, a most extreme problem, especially for these high-end brands. So imagine all of these people, the Dior's, the Chanel's, the Louis Vuittons of the world, quite reluctant of offering deliveries in general, up until a few years ago, because there's a huge differentiator factor. If you go into a Louis Vuitton shop, if you interact with the staff, they represent the brand properly. Now they are forced, all of these high-end brands, to offer deliveries. Otherwise, they might be out of business. The only touch point with a human being throughout your, from purchase to receiving your item might be just the delivery person. And that brings up a whole new set of requirements for these high-end brands. Like, do you want a branded delivery experience? Does the car need to say Louis Vuitton on it? Does the driver need to be dressed up in a certain way? Do they need to greet you in? It basically means that when you optimize, and obviously most of them do not rely on their own fleets, but when you optimize and set up your delivery for tomorrow, you need to make sure that for these high-end items or for these premium club members that we might have, it needs to be a branded delivery experience. The driver need to say that and the other. They need to greet you. They need to maybe hand over the parcel in a certain way. All of that needs to be managed very easily through the driver's app, I guess, and in sort of very clear instructions, so that the only touch point with a human being that the recipient had when going through this online buying process has been something that is worthy of your brand value, which is really, really key for especially high-end brands. Everybody, but especially them.
Marek?
Yeah, there's actually, there was something we wrote about, do you remember, Ian, about a year and a half ago in China, where for really high value watches, even before COVID.
That's JD.com, yeah.
So it was, white gloves actually mean something different, but from the perspective of this product, you had a guy literally with white gloves in a jacket.
Turn up in basically a big black limousine kind of car with their white gloves and a suit, the bow tie, to personally deliver your watch or whatever it would be. I mean, it's if you order a book or a set of tennis balls, you probably wouldn't order that option. But it was emphasizing the whole luxury experience. Yeah.
Absolutely. And guess what? There are companies now, and this is something I think is going to develop, that are creating software to be able to use best-in-class crowdsourced drivers. So, for example, what they do is take the Uber 4.9 stars guys, the Bolt 4.9 stars guys, who are not exclusive to them, give them some basic online training, probably with a magnetic, it's actually a cigarette company that's doing this in my part of the world. So with the, if you're not allowed to put logos of cigarette companies, but some kind of logo. So it's a really cool way. And I think watch this space. The whole last mile is going to change dramatically. Already has changed dramatically.
We've only got a couple of minutes left. So Yuval, I'm going to start with you here. The questions come through from Gregoire, and it's a great question. What are the 3 priority steps for retail deliveries in the first half of 2021, in your opinion?
So I would say, first of all, have a flexible, adaptable operation, supported by many options in terms of who can deliver for you and the technology to basically optimize the whole thing. When speaking about optimization, you must, especially if you're a large shipper and you work with maybe a few different types of internal fleets and external fleets, you must be able to, first of all, have a full real set of data that shows you how your operation is going, what are your costs, and then allow you to optimize based on that data. So that's the second one. Thirdly, don't compromise on your customer experience. It is key. Especially, and this is just relating to the last point we've made, if maybe your only touch point with a human being throughout this whole purchase is the delivery person, you must make sure that the delivery experience is key. We all know the statistics about what can a successful, a pleasant delivery experience do for your business, and God forbid what the opposite could do for your business.
Marek, do you want to have any quick comments on that as well?
Well, I won't repeat because I agree with everything that Yuval said, but I'd say 3, let's say maybe a little bit out of the box things. First of all, really communicate and understand what your customers want to make sure that you're going in the right direction. So that's number 1. So understand where things are going, think out of the box, look at partnerships, look at unusual tools. Finally, master technology. Make sure you've got the right technology behind you, because flexibility is all about the tech tools. If you look at, I always talk about the legacy carriers in the US. The reason they were not able to ramp up and adapt fast enough is the legacy systems didn't allow them to do that up until recently, I'd hope.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you very much for your interaction in the chat. And I'm sorry I didn't get through to everything, but it was going off there in the chat. I think we sparked a lot of serious conversations. Yuval and Marek, thank you both today, and thank you to everybody behind the scenes. Thank you all for being part of this webinar for Urbance today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ian. Keep well. Be safe.